Welcome back to another episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy, coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. And we are back celebrating another Victory Wednesday as the Dallas Cowboys defeated the Washington Commanders this past Sunday afternoon. It was a great game all around, offense, defense, and special teams for the Cowboys squad. Got a lot to talk about related to that game, and then we'll also look ahead to this week's matchup with the Cowboys versus the Denver Broncos. Should be a very good game. A lot of different storylines, a lot of great matchups in that game, and it's going to be interesting to see how we pull this out. But before we get started, as you guys know, this show is fueled by DC4L. So for those of you who are watching from YouTube and X, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go to the DC4L Facebook page. I see we got quite a few people joining us from DC4L tonight, so thank you guys for joining tonight. Safe space for Cowboys fans to talk Cowboys football. A lot of knowledgeable fans. We don't allow any bullying. We don't allow any derogatory talk. The admin are always watching. We're always monitoring. So we try to make sure that we keep the space as engaging as possible, while at the same time not allowing any bullying, hate speech, or just general harassment. So if you guys are looking for a Cowboys group, and I know with all of you watching, you probably are involved with a bunch of Cowboys groups. So if you want to be in a group that doesn't have a bunch of bots in it, or a bunch of people having conversations that aren't Cowboys related or football in general, check out DC4L on Facebook, DC4L. Hit that like button, join the conversation. And also, DC4L has a YouTube channel as well. So if you guys go to YouTube, type in DC4L, hit that subscribe button, and follow the YouTube channel as well. And while you're on YouTube, you can find me at Bluff City Cowboys. If you could, please hit that subscribe button. Help me on my path to 1,000 subscribers. All right, see, we got a lot of the usuals joining us tonight. So we had Special Potion waiting from the very beginning. So Special Potion, thank you for joining us again. Yeah, we definitely gave them that belt on Sunday afternoon. We got William Wiggins, longtime follower. Appreciate you joining us as always. Got my guy Jeff joining me from across the state lines in Mississippi. Thank you for joining as always, Jeff. And we've got another regular, Christopher Woods. Thank you for joining us also. Salute to you as well. For those of you who are watching from YouTube and Facebook, if you haven't done so already, get in the comments. Let me know who you are, where you're watching from, how long you've been a Cowboys fan. This show is fueled by Fifth Quarter Nation, so we love having engaging dialogue with all the Cowboys fans. I see we got Smack Talk joining us in the building. Smack Talk, thank you for joining us as well. And for those of you who are watching from X, thank you for all your support. If you get a chance, go to YouTube, Bluff City Cowboys, hit that subscribe button, help me out. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. We'll start off first with a quick game recap of last week's game, and then we'll look ahead to this Denver Broncos matchup. So if you guys have any questions, any comments about last week's game or this week's game, feel free to put it in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. But first, let's go ahead and jump into this game recap.
Game recap.
All right, so as you guys know, the Cowboys defeated the Washington Commanders 44-22. Actually, it wasn't even as close as the scoreboard suggested. Jaden Daniels went out early in the second half, and they kind of took their feet off the pedal, let Mariota get a couple of long runs, make a couple of throws, and get a garbage time touchdown. Outside of that, it was a full butt whooping from beginning to end from the first drive. So I'll give you guys a couple of notes from what I saw last week's game. Some of these notes are going to be pretty redundant because, of course, we're dealing with the same issues. and the same positives keep standing out. So let's go ahead and start with the offense first, and then we'll go to defense. So offensively, we got a sample of this week one. Um, our dynamic duo is pretty much unstoppable. And when I say dynamic duo, I mean George Pickens and CD Lamb. I see we got Jerome Grover joining us, fans since '77. So you've watched some of the good times. You went through the bad times of the '80s, picked back up into the '90s, and then now we're kind of teetering in the middle right now. So you've seen it all. Thank you for joining us tonight. So, like I said, our dynamic duo is unstoppable. We talked about this in the offseason. We talked about it week one. It's pretty much a pick your poison situation. Week one, week two, Dak was kind of rusty with George Pickens. If you recall, he was still doing deep routes, but Dak was a little bit off on his targets, and Pickens was drawing pass interference calls. So those few weeks that CD Lamb were out were slightly a blessing in disguise because that allowed Dak and Pickens to get on the same page. So now you bring Lamb back, and Dak and Lamb pick up right where they start, where they left off from. But now you add in that chemistry with Pickens, and now defenses don't know what to do. Um, Kurt Whitmer joining us. Thank you for joining. I'm sure it was wild at that game. The first Cowboys game I ever went to was a Commanders game. They were the Redskins back then. It was a wild time then, and I'm pretty sure it's wild now because we just consistently beat them. So I love what the dynamic duo is doing. Dak is starting to spread the ball out more. He's not waiting until we absolutely have to make a play and throwing it to Pickens. He's giving it to him early, giving it to him often. Um, it can only help the offense do what they need to do to stay successful. It opens up the running game, opens up the passing game with other guys. And that takes me to point number two, Jake Ferguson. Um, Looking at Jake Ferguson in preseason and kind of last year, it looked like he was starting to lose a step where he's not able to stretch the field like he was in his rookie year. That may be a blessing in disguise now because he's perfect for this scheme. He still has his short area quickness. He still knows how to use his size. So while we got Lamb and Pickens running the deep routes, now Ferguson gets to focus on all the routes 10 yards and under, kind of like how Jason Witten used to do in the tail end of his career. And so far, that's been paying dividends because Ferguson, while he hasn't gotten a lot of yards, he's getting a lot of timely receptions. And of course, he's getting a lot of touchdowns, which are helping this team continue to put up points on the scoreboard. Um, Kurt Whitmer, great point. He's not forcing the ball to CD like he used to last year. Yeah, he definitely has a 1B or 1A, as CD like to say, that can make a play when CD's getting covered. So you pretty much have to pick your poison. You can't double both. It's either one or the other. And if you do decide to try to put extra coverage on both, then we've got the perfect complement in Jake Ferguson, who can make plays underneath against man coverage. Point number three, Shotty's play calling has just been flawless from beginning to end. He's aggressive when he needs to be aggressive. He's calling running plays in different situations. It's not always 1st and 10. He's passing on 3rd and 3. He's running on 2nd and 5. He's putting together a great scheme. Everything's not deep balls. Everything's not underneath passes. So you can't call Dak a dinking Dak. He's throwing it deep. He's throwing underneath. It's just a great mixture of different running and passing concepts. Um, I can't wait till they start implementing the other receivers in because I still would like to see more Flournoy. I also would like to see them incorporate Turpin more. Now, they don't have to force it because right now what we're doing is great. We're still scoring 30, 40 points a game. But I would just love to see those guys get implemented one or two plays more than they have been. But outside of the last drive of the Panthers game, Shotty's been 100% on every play call. Not a single call can any Cowboy fan second guess. Jeff brought up another point because Mingo will be active this week, so I am interested in seeing what he can do as well. I really like the possible Mingo addition, kind of like what we just talked about with Jake Ferguson, where you've got Pickens running the deep routes, pulling the safeties. You've got Lamb running the intermediate routes, drawing the other safety. So now everybody else is just one-on-one. So you got Jake Ferguson, who's manipulating the linebackers on the inside. So what does that leave you with? Now that leaves you with a guy like Mingo, who's big, physical, and fast, and he can run those slant routes. He can run those out routes. He can run those curls. So I think Mingo's going to give us that added addition of being able to run those short routes that Ferguson can't run and be a good possession receiver. So he definitely has some aspects he can bring to this offense. Chris Wood said Booker's playing at a Pro Bowl level. Borderline. I'm right there with you. Watching the All 22, there's still some struggles, but he's a rookie. But at the end of the day, they're keeping Dak clean. Guys are still generating pressure, in my opinion. They're just not getting home, which for a rookie, that's all you can ask for, considering the gauntlet of all-star D tackles he's seen. So, like, if you look at the Cowboys' schedule so far, and you look at the D tackles that Booker's gone against, we didn't get Carter week 1, but we still saw the other kid from Georgia. Then you go to week 2, you've got the kids with New York. The Bears D tackles have been playing at an all-pro level. Then you've got the Packers, great interior D line. The Jets still have Quentin Williams, despite how bad they look. And then the Panthers had the Brown boys. And then you go to Washington, and Washington still has 2 first-rounders on their D line. So they've been going against some really talented D tackles. Considering he's a rookie, he's been holding his own very well. Let's see. The only play calls I didn't like was in the Panthers game. Yeah, I just talked about that. I think you may have just missed it, Kurt Whitmer. I said outside of that drive, I don't have any complaints about a single play call that Shotty's made so far. William Wiggins asked the question, who won the MVP in 16-17? Well, I know who should have won it, but of course, that wasn't going to happen because at the time, Dak was a rookie. All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball real quick because it's a lot to unpack there, but I try to keep my notes as limited as possible because I don't want to hold you guys too long. So just looking at my defensive notes, for some reason, Eberflus wants to save face in the media. He should just admit what every Cowboys fan have seen. Our corners are man corners. Our safeties are not good with calling protections. Take the responsibility out of their hands, run a man concept, let your linebackers either cover or go. Make it, that's as simple as you can get. And since they've been doing that, whenever they run more man, you get better results from your pass rush. So I'm glad to see Eberflus has made more adjustments. I just hope he continues those adjustments as the season goes on. Point number 2, I just talked about it. You don't make the scheme simple by running a zone because guys don't understand where their zone is. But if you tell a guy, if there's a tight end on the end of the line, that's your guy. If there's not, you stay in the middle of the field or you blitz. That's simple. That's what a man scheme does. And watching Murray from last week against the Panthers versus this week against the Commanders was completely night and day. Last week he looked completely lost. He didn't know what holes to hit, and he was just giving Dowdle all type of running lanes to run through. This week, playing a man concept, all he had to do was run the B gap. You're either backpedaling, covering the tight end, or run the B gap. And when he can actually not think and see it, he's a really good linebacker. So hopefully, for linebacker's sake, they continue to let him run the man scheme. And that takes us to point number 3. I keep hearing people say we need to trade for a pass rusher. Our pass rushers look good, in my opinion. The problem is when we run zone concepts, that our secondary doesn't know how to cover well enough, and they allow guys to continuously stay open. So for me, I think our pass rushers are good. You look at the Jets game, you look at this pass game. Both of those games where we saw them running man, our defensive ends had multiple sacks. In the games where we ran zone, they couldn't smell the quarterback. I think there's a correlation there. And it's not just our pass rushers are bad. We need to give them more time. So I feel like we're going to finally start to see guys break out. Donovan Ezaraku, who, if you look at PFF, he's one of the leaders in the NFL in pressures. He just got his first sack. This could open up the floodgates for him. If you guys go back to Trayvon Diggs' rookie year, Trayvon Diggs was one of the league leaders in pass deflections, but he didn't have any interceptions. He got that first interception, and then the avalanche started from the second half of year 1 going to year 2. I feel like Ezaraku could do the same thing when it comes to sacks. So I just hope they continue to play man. We got help coming back that's going to help the front end, and it's going to give guys like him more time. William Wiggins said, Shotty said it was because who they were playing that we played man. So the question is, does he continue to play man more? That's a great question. I think we'll find out this week because this team has a very talented receiver group. And I say receiver group and not wide receivers because they have some great tight ends as well. And they have running backs who are really good out of the backfield. Yeah, so that's a great thing to pay attention to this week, William Wiggins, and I'll definitely be watching that as well. I expect Kalen Carson to play this week. Quite possibly Trayvon Diggs could play as well. So I do expect to see some more man concepts in this week's matchup. Jeff asked the question, what about Dante Fowler regression? I don't think he's necessarily regressed. I just think what he is, we haven't used it yet. He's not a first down defensive end. He's a third down defensive end. And if you go back to that Jets game, when they gave him time to pass rush, like 2 to 3 seconds instead of 1.5, he was making stuff happen. But if you put him out there on first down and ask him to protect the edge, he's not going to do that well. So I think he's just going to be a designated pass rush guy. And whenever the situation arises, give him the opportunity to make plays. Jack Meeker asked, when do you feel Revel will be on the field? Well, the good news is the Cowboys just opened up the 21-day window for Overshown, BB, and Revel. So for those of you who are not familiar, when players go on IR from the preseason or the PUP list, when the team decides that they're ready, the NFL allows them with a window to allow the guys to practice because they didn't practice in the offseason. So you get 3 weeks to actually get them on the practice field, to let them get acclimated to running around and hitting and learn the scheme, and also for the team to be able to observe whether this guy's ready. So the Cowboys have 21 days to look at Revel on the practice field to see if he's ready to play. I would guess that he'll probably be playing after the bye week against the Raiders. That would be my guess, because we got the Broncos this week. Then we have the bye week. I'm sorry, we have this week, then we have the Cardinals, then we have the bye week, and then we have the Raiders. So I think he probably misses the next 2 games. They take full advantage of the 21-day window, and then by the time we play the Raiders on, I believe it's Monday Night Football, barring any further injuries, we should have the team that we expected to see week 1. I think BB will be back by then. I think Rev will be back by then, and I think Overshawn will be back by then. So that's kind of my answer for all 3. Revel may have a chance to play in that Cardinals game because I think his injuries healed. I think right now is really just catching up in the playbook and on the field. So if he comes out this week and has a good week of practice, I wouldn't be surprised to see him playing against the Cardinals. But if not, I think they may try to slow play everybody and just have a full roster for the Raiders on the 17th. So Jeff says look for some more mysterious injuries and IR designations. Speaking of that, got some good news today. The Cowboys just re-signed Zion Childress, one of my favorite players out of this draft. He could play outside corner, inside corner, and safety. I wouldn't be shocked to see him get some run at safety over the next couple of weeks. And in order to sign him to the practice squad, the Cowboys put Jalen Brooks on IR. So, Jeff, you talk about those mysterious injuries. We just had a practice squad IR instead of cutting Jalen Brooks, which I didn't even know was possible to put a practice squad guy on IR. But they did it, and Zion Childress is now back on the Cowboys roster. All right, we're at 23 minutes. Views are still going up. Thank you guys, everybody who's joining us from the DC4L Facebook group. Also, those of you watching from X as well as my YouTube channel, I see you guys are pretty much filling up the chat right now. So thank you for that. Continue to keep asking the great questions, great comments. This is what this show is all about. So I think there's not much else to talk about with that Commanders game. I keep seeing fans say, well, the Commanders didn't have their receivers. They haven't had McLaurin pretty much all year. The same fans who wanted us to run Noah Brown out of the city are now talking about the Commanders losing Noah Brown as a major loss. So you can't have it both ways. Either Noah Brown's a good wide receiver or he's not. Personally, I don't think he is. I think he's a great special teamer. So I don't count that as a loss on the offense. The only loss they really had from this week was Deebo Samuel. And if you look at Deebo Samuel's stats this year so far, he has 300 yards in 6 games. He has one good game of 96 yards. Every other game, he's 40 yards or less. So we're not talking about just world beaters here. Of course, it was a loss to lose those guys, but I don't use that as an excuse to why we beat the Commanders, because we still put up 44 points on them. And they still have this running game that they thought was great. In my opinion, Zach Ertz is their best receiver. He was still playing. We just did a good job of covering him. So I don't make excuses for the Commanders. It was a great win for us all around. All right, so great win. Got to put that in the back burner. And now we'll look ahead to this week's matchup against against the Denver Broncos. Special Potion says Washington only made it far last year because of their schedule. Thank you for bringing that up. They made it because of their schedule, one, and for two, nobody knew what Jaden Daniels was going to be in the NFL. You speculate, but you don't know. It's kind of the same thing the Giants are experiencing with Jackson Dart, where you don't know what he is. You haven't learned his tendencies yet. He's a mobile quarterback, and mobile quarterbacks always give defenses problems because you can't anticipate what to expect from down to down. So the Giants are dealing with this success right now. I think the Commanders dealt with it last year. As you can see this year, even when Jaden Daniels was playing, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. They're figuring him out. So I think the Cowboys are part of that as well. We beat them last year without this team. So good win all around. And just like Jeff said, nobody gave us a pass when CD went down. Exactly. Yeah, but I think everybody's benefiting from Jackson Dart because you don't know how mobile he is and he plays so erratic. You don't know when he's going to run it. I wouldn't be surprised within the next 2 weeks, you're going to see a situation where teams are going to pretty much just force Jackson Dart to run. They're going to cover everything else up and they're going to allow him to run because they can see he's not the type of quarterback that's going to slide. So if you got a quarterback who's willing to take hits, in the next 2 weeks, you're going to start seeing teams play shell coverage, cover everything up, start doing more blitzing to cover up run gaps, and they're going to make him run it and see if he can stay healthy. All right, guys, let's go ahead. Let's move forward to before we go on. Got to talk about the player of the week. I had a lot of options for player of the week this week, but I had to give it to Jake Ferguson. I could have went Lamb. I could have went Bland. Could have went George Pickens. Javonte Williams had another great game. But 7 catches and 2 receiving touchdowns for our tight end got to be recognized. I talked about it before when I gave my offensive notes. Jake Ferguson is that extra piece that kind of brings the offense together because, like I said, you got Pickens pulling one safety, you got Lamb pulling the other safety, you've got Javonte pulling linebackers down. So now you need someone who can cover underneath and make plays, and that's exactly what Jake Ferguson has been doing and taking good advantage of it. Jeff says I would love to see that yardage total go up more. In his defense, most of his catches have been on third down situations and red zone. So he's not really getting a lot of opportunities to get those yardage numbers up. If we're on the 4-yard line, he catches it for a touchdown. I mean, you can't get yards from there. If it's 3rd and 3 and they run him on a 5-yard route, I mean, he's just getting the first. His catches have all been clutch. I would love to see the yardage go up too, but if he can give me 7 catches and every catch leads to a first down or a touchdown, that's even more valuable than giving me 60 yards because we got guys who can get 60 yards receiving. We got 2 of them. A third one if they use Flournoy more. But for what Jake Ferguson does, he's doing a great job of it, and I hope he continues that. Once Ferg showed up in Dak's high school jersey, it was on. That was a good sight to see. And by the way, this week is National Tight Ends Week in the NFL. So I'm expecting a lot of tight ends to go off, including Jake Ferguson. So if you like to make bets or if you're on a fantasy league and you have Jake Ferguson, this will be a good week to bet on him, I think. Thank you, Jerome Grover. I appreciate that. Hope you continue to join us for future episodes. All right, guys. So let's look ahead to this Denver Broncos game. As you know, we have 3 segments that we go through. We're at 31 minutes. I'm going to get you guys out of here in 1 hour. So let's start off just doing a quick tale of the tape between the Cowboys and the Broncos. So, and I see your question, Jack Meeker. I'll get to it in a second. So tale of the tape. Scoring offense. The Cowboys are second in the NFL in points. Denver Broncos are close to middle of the road with 23 points a game. Scoring defense. The Cowboys were up there in the 30s at one point. We're down to 29.4. So the defense is improving. Denver has a top 3 defense right now. I believe they're number 1 against the run, and they're just top 4 in scoring defenses. So this matchup should be a great test of the unstoppable force against the immovable object. Which side of the ball will win? The Giants did show some vulnerabilities in the Broncos defense this past week. So there are some things we could take advantage of. But like I just talked about it before, I think a lot of that came from the erratic play of Jackson Dart. And once they figured him out, you saw they came back and shut him down quick. Yep, great point, Jeff. I was going to talk about that one later. But yeah, we got a rivalry game. The team that drafted him and put him on the curb as trash, Javonte Williams gets his payback. We'll hit that up later in the show. And then turnovers. Cowboys haven't had a turnover in 4 weeks. And the Broncos are -2 in turnover differential, which means they've given up more turnovers than they've gotten back. So Jack Meeker asked the question, does having Mingo back get you-know-who off the field, even if he's Dak's bestie? I would say yes, because even though Dak does have a good relationship with him, the owner makes the calls. And if there were ever a time for Jerry to say, I told you so about giving up a 4th-round pick for Mingo, it would be right now. So this is the perfect time to give Mingo an opportunity to show what he can do. He's pretty much an afterthought. And I think just from slants and comebacks and maybe a couple of double moves, I think he can make an impact. Great stat by Special Potion. We haven't beaten the Broncos in 30 years. Hopefully we can break that this Sunday. There's a first time for everything, Special Potion, and I do believe that this can be the week. But we've got a lot of great matchups to pay attention to in this game that we're about to talk about right now. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the key matchups to pay attention to in this week's game. And before we do, once again, this is an interactive show. So for all of you watching, get in the comments. Let me know your questions, your comments, your thoughts. So let's go ahead and go into our key matchups.
Key matchups.
All right, so let's start at the top. This is the matchup to pay attention to. George Pickens versus Pat Surtain II. As you guys know, Pat Surtain is 1 year removed from winning Defensive Player of the Year. Great man corner. He normally follows the team's best receiver. So he doesn't play in the slot much. So I fully expect him to be George Pickens' shadow throughout the game. George Pickens, one of the best 50-50 ball receivers in the league right now. I don't think Dak can just ignore him because of who's on him. We saw it against J.C. Horn. We saw it against Sauce Gardner. I think this is going to be another one of those great competition slash test for George Pickens to show that he can be an elite wide receiver. So I'm definitely paying attention to this matchup to see if George Pickens can make something happen. Great question from William Wiggins. Does Denver play more man or zone? So when I watch the Denver Broncos play, I would say that they run more zone. They're kind of a hybrid defense, but I would say they lean more towards cover 3 zone with some exotic blitzes from their front seven. So they love letting Pat Surtain kind of hold down one player and then the rest of the secondary kind of play around him. And then, like I said before, they love blitzing from their front seven. So we're going to see a lot of exotic blitzes from their linebackers and their safeties. As a matter of fact, one of their linebackers is one of the leading sack getters in the NFL because they blitz them so much. And we'll talk about that in a minute as well. So I would expect to see a lot of zone this game. So the good thing about having a quarterback like Dak is Dak does a great job of reading zone. So even if they hide stuff, if they give them time, Dak can make them pay. But unfortunately, the flip side of that is if you run zone and you get to Dak, that can be when he has a lot of turnovers. So we definitely got to pay attention to that as well. Let's go to another matchup. And I think this one is kind of what I just talked about. Tyler Guyton versus Jonathan Cooper. Tyler Guyton's been playing okay past couple of weeks. Definitely improving from last year, but he still leaves a lot to be desired. He's going against Jonathan Cooper. That's the linebacker I told you guys about from Ohio State. He blitzes a lot, and he actually has 6 sacks on the year as a linebacker, which is a lot for a season, let alone the first 7 weeks of the season. So Tyler Guyton's going to see a lot of Jonathan Cooper blitzing from the C gap as well as from the edge. So this is going to be the big matchup in terms of the pass rush generating. Jonathan Cooper, 6'4", like 245. So he's kind of a small guy. He likes to use his shiftiness and his length to get separation. So Tyler Guyton really has to stay on his toes when this guy starts to rush on the edges and on the inside. Jeff says Dak going to need 2 or 3 running plays this week. Absolutely agree. I just talked about it with Jackson Dart. The thing that screwed their defense up was they would blitz and Dart would get out of harm's way and make a big run, or he get out of harm's way, buy an extra second, and find the weakness in his zone. We're going to need Dak to give us 2 or 3 of those this week. I 100% agree, Jeff. Great point. But I'm definitely going to be watching Jonathan Cooper because this kid is all over the field. Another matchup I think is going to really be good is Clowney versus Mike McGlinchey. Mike McGlinchey, former first-round pick from the Niners, kind of was underwhelming for the Niners. They ended up letting him go in free agency. The Broncos picked him up, and so far he's been playing like a top 10 tackle in this league. So Clowney's definitely going to have his hands full. It seems like Clowney's starting to get his wind, starting to get in a rhythm, putting together pass rush sets. So this is going to be a really good matchup to pay attention to in terms of generating pressure on Bo Nix. On top of that, the Broncos love running a wide zone running scheme, which means that they're going to be running the ball right at the C gap, right at Clowney. So we're definitely going to need him to hold up and set those edges and not get beat by this tackle because a lot of their running plays go right behind Mike McGlinchey on the edge. So not only for the passing game is this an important matchup, it's even more important in the running game. Great point, William Wiggins. Guyton's not that good with fast, shifty guys. 100% agree. He has athleticism, he has length, but he has a tendency to get sloppy feet when he goes against fast guys. And if he can't get his feet set, then he starts to stumble. And that's when he gets beaten. You're right. When you put him against big physical guys, he normally has an ability to keep himself up. Chris Wood said James has to be better in gap coverage. We can say that for both of our linebackers. And I talked about this the week that Shamar James started. He had 15 tackles, which was really good. But if you watch that game, every tackle came at least 7 yards downfield. And the big reason for that is, just like Christopher Wood said, gap integrity. If you get beat out of your gap, that running back's going to get a head of steam, and you got to try to tackle him on the second level. Now, luckily for us, Shamar James is a great tackler, and he's able, when he tackles a guy, he gets him down, which is a good thing. So those 7-yard runs could have been 20-yard runs, but they were still long runs. So we have to get better in gap coverage when it comes to the running game, especially in a game like this where the team is running wide in the C gap. So now when you're running against a team like the Commanders, for example, the Commanders have what's called a power running game, similar to kind of what Dallas runs right now. Everything's A gap, B gap. You're going to double team, running back's going to find a seam, break a tackle, keep it moving. When we played the Commanders, that's how they run. So luckily for James and Murray, all you're watching is A gap and B gap. A game like this where a team runs wide zone, you have to cover your whole side of the field because the play may go to the outside, but the running back is talented enough. He's going to read every gap on his way to the outside, and he'll easily plant his foot and cut up field if he sees the crease. So we definitely need our linebackers to have better gap integrity. This one, good question by Chris Woods. I mean, to me, it's not even a question. Peyton's definitely going to outcoach Eberflus. The question is, can our players hold up, even though they're probably going to get outcoached? Jeff said, I would love to have a player like Curse in this game. Well, we got Ezaraku, and I think we're going to start to see some Curse-like play from him. I think this may be his coming out party. So I'm looking forward to seeing him this week. All right, let's go back into our key matchups for this week. So we talked about offensive side of the ball. Let's go back to the defense and talk about Deron Bland versus Marvin Mims. Now, most fans may not know who Marvin Mims is because even though he was a highly drafted player, he hasn't performed well. He's extremely inconsistent, but still an extremely talented player. I think Marvin Mims has the chance to be the player of the game this week because he's fast, he's shifty, he's explosive. Last week against the Giants, he had 6 catches for 85 yards. He can have one of those games at any time. It's just all about his level of consistency. So I think this with him versus Deron Bland is going to be a great matchup to pay attention to. Oh, you meant Jaron Curse. I thought you meant the old defensive end. Yeah, we do need a leader in the middle of the field who can call stuff out. William Wiggins asked the question, when is BB coming back? Talked about this earlier in the show. BB just had his 21-day window open. Actually, in an interview today, BB said that he probably won't be ready this week, but he'll absolutely be ready next week. So I expect Cooper BB to be back in the starting lineup next week against the Cardinals. Also, next week is going to be another rivalry game or another revenge game where our offensive coordinator Clayton Adams is going against his old defensive team with the Cardinals. So I know Clayton Adams is going to want to have his full complement of offensive linemen, and they're going to play smash mouth football against the Cardinals. So next Sunday at the latest is when I would expect to see BB. Now, William Wiggins said Mims has been playing bad. He plays bad a lot, but he has the capabilities to make some big plays if given the chance. So I agree with you. He gives opportunities. You just got to find them. All right, so I think those are the four biggest key matchups in this week's game. You got Pickens against Passertan. You got Bland against Marvin Mims. You got Guyton against the linebacker Jonathan Cooper, and then you got Clowney versus Mike McGlinchey. I could put Sutton in there, but for some reason, Sutton and Nix have not had a good connection. And to be honest, if Diggs plays this week, I really like Diggs versus Sutton. Even if it's Elam, I like Elam versus Sutton. The way Sutton plays is a great style of play for Elam. It's not shifty. It's not a lot of routes. You're basically just using your athleticism versus his athleticism. And in situations like that, I really like Kyer Elam. They're going to pick up Kyler Murray pieces all over the field. We'll talk about that next week. Jeff Dunnigan, great point. Bad players play good versus Dallas. Always happens. Special Potion asks, what's wrong with the snapper number 67? I haven't heard anything. I'll check on that, but I haven't heard anything about our long snapper, Special Potion. So, all right, guys. Got two more segments. We're going to do X Factors, and then I'm going to get you guys involved with a few over-unders. So let's go ahead and talk about X Factors. In this game, for the Broncos, I see two X Factors that have a chance to make some big plays. Jeff kind of – oh, he meant Brock Hoffman. Gotcha. I don't think anything's wrong with Brock Hoffman. I haven't seen anything about Brock Hoffman being hurt. So I let me know, Special Potion, where you got the reference from about what's wrong with the snapper, because I haven't seen anything. And thanks for letting me know that, Jeff. So Jeff brought up a great point about would love to see Curse covering tight ends. One of my X factors in this game is Evan Ingram. People forget Evan Ingram is a part of this team. Same thing as with the Giants. He's always dealing with some type of injury, but he's still 6'3", still runs a 4.4-ish. And when given the opportunity, he can create a big mismatch against linebackers and safeties. He hasn't made his presence felt this year, but also, just like Jeff said, bad players play good versus Dallas. So I can see situations where they try to get Evan Ingram lined up against our linebackers and our tight ends, and he take advantage. So I'm definitely going to be watching this matchup. Special Potion. Okay, I got you now. What's wrong with him? Why do we want BB back? Well, I mean, to be quite frankly, saying I want BB back is not saying Hoffman's a bad player. BB's just a better player. And there's nothing wrong with that. BB is the starter for the reason. So even though Hoffman's playing well, I don't think he's played well enough to relegate BB to the bench if he's healthy. And just like Jeff said, he's just a starter. There's no knock on Hoffman. Hoffman's a good player. I think Hoffman could probably be a starting center for a minimum quarter of the league. He's been that good. But BB's a top 10 center in the league right now. So you give the guy who's the better player his spot back if given the chance. Yeah. He's also younger, higher round draft pick. Got people on the offensive position group who are familiar with him. Jeff says I like Hoffman better at guard. I mean, I think he plays both well, so I wouldn't be mad either way. But yeah, if BB's 100% healthy, I'm putting him back in because it makes the offensive line and the running game look that much more better. All right, so let's talk about our second X factor. Now, my guy Lambo would love this one. RJ Harvey, the rookie out of UCF. They don't use him in the running game at all. Where he makes his money is in the passing game. They bring him in the game. He gets about 4 targets a week. For a running back, that's a lot. So they definitely take advantage of him. And our linebackers have problems covering running backs out of the backfield. We saw it with Dowdle. We saw it a little bit with Saquon. We saw it with Brees Hall. Our linebackers have problems covering running backs. And I feel like if RJ Harvey gets the opportunity, he can create some real damage coming out of the backfield as a receiver. I agree with this, Jeff, but I'm rolling with the cards that we're dealt right now. And the cards that we're dealt right now say RJ Harvey can give our linebackers fits when he's in the game. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I would be shocked if he doesn't get a big 20-plus yard reception at some point. All right, so those are my 2 big X factors in this game. We're at 53 minutes. We're at the last segment of the show. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, the last segment of the show is over under, where I will give you guys a few statistics based off this week's game, and you let me know whether or not that player will go over or under that statistic. So I only got a couple of them since we're at 54 minutes. Let's go ahead and hop into over under.
Over under.
All right. So for my first over under 300 total yards for Bo Nix. Just to give you guys a point of reference, so far this year, there's only been one receiver with under 300 total yards against the Cowboys. And that was Justin Fields with the Jets. So over under 300 total yards. Well, Jaden Daniels too, but he got hurt, so I give him a slight pass. But over under 300 total yards for Bo Nix. Bo Nix is a mobile quarterback. He can give you 30, 40 yards rushing as well. Russell Dyer, thank you for joining us. He says over. We got Jeff saying under. Let me know if anybody else. Over under 300 total yards. That's not only passing, that's also rushing. All right. Let's see. Jack Meeker said, I feel good this week under. Special Potion saying, I'm going with over on this one. So we got it pretty split. Got a couple of unders, got a couple of overs. We appreciate you joining, Russell. Better late than never. Feel free to rewatch the show, or feel free to just share it to your page so that other Cowboys fans can see what we talked about. All right, I only got two more over unders, and I'll get you guys out of here. The next over under is George Pickens. So we just talked about he'll be getting followed by former Defensive Player of the Year, Pat Surtain II. He's been on a streak of 60 yards or more the past 4 games. 3 of those games, Lamb was out, and then last week he had 80 plus yards. Over under 60 receiving yards for George Pickens. Let me know what you guys think. All right, we got Don Live joining us. Appreciate you tuning in, Don Live. Says definitely over. Join us on the show late, Don Live, but I definitely hope you can come back and join us again on a future episode. Russell Dyer saying over. Okay. Got a lot of fans confident that George Pickens can win his matchup with Pat Surtain. Everybody saying over. Over, and I think he would draw some penalties as well. Okay. Jeff says he gets Pat at least twice on deep balls. Okay. So everybody's going over. All right. Definitely something to pay attention to in this week's game. Jack, okay. We got no under so far. So everybody thinks George Pickens is going to ball out this week. That's good to know. All right. So we got one more over under, and then I get out of here. And as you know, the last over under is always an either or. So we've got Javonte Williams in a revenge game against his old team, the Denver Broncos, which, by the way, the Broncos have given up the fewest rushing yards in the NFL, versus J.K. Dobbins. Which running back has more rushing yards? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And while you guys say that, I'll give you my thoughts on the over-unders. I think this game might be a shootout, so I think Bo Nix will go over. I think George Pickens will probably go over. I agree. I think he gets one deep catch and then a couple of underneaths where they kind of give up the yardage, 3rd and long, try to make the tackle to get him down. So I can see that. In this one, I'm right there with you guys. I don't care what the stats say. Our offensive line is playing well, and Javonte Williams wants payback. And I think our coaching staff is the type where they're going to use this game as a challenge for the offensive line. Like, do you want to protect your brother's honor? This team threw him out in the trash. He wants to get his payback. Are you going to help him get it? So I feel like this is going to be one of those offensive line rally days to see if they rally around Javonte Williams. So I expect him to have not only have more rushing yards, I also expect him to have at least one touchdown. So I'm right there with you guys. I would be shocked if he has under 70 yards rushing this week. Now, Dobbins may have the same or similar, but I think Javonte Williams is going to really ball out. Yeah. They blitz a lot. That's my only concern. They have a lot of run blitzes. But the thing about teams that run blitz, if you miss that blitz, he breaks a tackle, and you guys know what happens. 60-yard rushes. So we got a lot to pay attention to this week. Should be a great matchup. I should be able to do a pregame show this Sunday. So we will be doing game predictions, bowl predictions, and I will be giving you fantasy favorites. So make sure you guys come back and join us this Sunday at 11:15 Central Time for our pregame show. And as always, you can find us right here every Wednesday night at 8:30 Central Standard Time for the Fifth Quarter Podcast. Another great show. You guys really brought it once again. Appreciate all the great questions, all the great comments. Definitely looking forward to this game. I think this game, and I thought it would have been the Panthers game, but it's not. I think this game could be a real springboard into getting us on a roll, because after that, we have the Cardinals bye week, the Raiders, and then I think it's the Eagles. And the Eagles offense has left a lot to be desired, as well as their defense. I think we get payback. So this game could start a 5 or 6 game winning streak for the Cowboys. But I think it has to start here and then keep the momentum going. So definitely appreciate that, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us, Jeff, William. Appreciate all the kind words. I will do a free agent show, William Wiggins. So I'm glad you brought that up. So I will hop on live probably, trying to think. So the 4th, I'll probably do a show either that Thursday or Friday. Probably Friday. No, that'll be Halloween. Okay. So I may do a show either next Thursday or next Saturday, just so we can talk about some of the potential free agents or trades that I'm expecting us to look at. Thank you, Special Post, appreciate it. Yeah, that Cardinals game is always a scary game. Lucky for us, I think we've taken away their biggest weapon. We have their offensive coordinator. So not only do they not have the same running game, they don't have the same running backs, but we have a guy who can give our defense knowledge of how to stop what he was killing us with for the past 4 years. So I'm definitely looking forward to that game as well for some payback. So once again, join us for our pregame show this Sunday, and also join us next Wednesday, 8:30 Central Standard Time for the Fifth Quarter Podcast. Hopefully we'll be celebrating another Victory Wednesday, and we'll be discussing that rivalry game. It's definitely become a rivalry game now against the Arizona Cardinals. I may be doing another show with the UK guys at some point this week. So if I do, I'll post it on X and I'll let you guys know. I'll probably multicast it here. So I hope you guys can join me for that. Thank you guys for joining once again. Always a pleasure to be able to come on the screen and pause and talk to you guys about Cowboys football. Thank you guys for your support. I always appreciate the conversation. And as always, let's go Cowboys. I will see you guys next week.